So hello everybody, we are here in the new chapter, anxiolytic, sedative and hypnotic. As you can see, three different terms out there on the screen. It means all are three different chapters, right? Anxiolytic is different, sedative is different, as well as hypnotic is different. But here we'll be studying the three chapters all together, right? Because there are certain interconnections in between these terms. So what are these? We'll be studying one by one. Okay? But before that, I would like to tell you this chapter is directly linked to the central nervous system. So if you have not gone through my previous video, that means neurotransmitter in CNS, if you are not watching that video, if you are not preparing any kind of notes, and more precisely, if you are not gripping whatever I told you there, then it will be very difficult for you to understand this one. So I just urge you, first you watch that previous video, okay, prepare the notes, try to grab it, everything, okay, then you come to this video and you'll understand clearly everything, okay. That means what? If you understand the previous video, no, this video is like very simple for you. It will be very simple for you to understand. Okay, so let's proceed. Right. All right. So first of all, we need to know the meaning of the word anxiety, because anxiolytic are the drugs, those who are reducing the anxiety. Right. So as per the definitions, anxiety is an emotional state. It is unpleasant in nature, associated with uneasiness, discomfort and concern or fear about some defined or undefined future threat. So more precisely, we say this is a kind of over fearful, or we can say over worried. But this anxiety is more than worried, being worried, or more than fearful, right? If you are worried about something, if you are fearful about something, it is good for you. You should be worried. You should have the fear. It will protect you from the upcoming danger. But if you are over worried or over fearful about any kind of earthquake, which is uncertain, right? All the time you are just morning, evening, you are just worried about this earthquake. You just think that earthquake will come, the whole world will destroy, you will die. It is a kind of anxiety, right? But worried is good. If you are fearful or you are being worried, it is a kind of good for you. For example, during these COVID-19 situations, all you are inside your home, right? You are maintaining the social distance. It is not an anxiety, right? You got the fear about this COVID-19 infections. You are worried about this kind of communicable diseases. That is why you are taking all this kind of precautionary measures. So this is not a kind of anxiety. Anxiety is over worried or over fearful regarding certain conditions, certain threat which may arise or may not arise, right? That is the conditions. Now it is the adaptive response which prepares a person to face the challenges of life. It is adaptive response. It is good for you up to certain point, right? Up to certain point it is good for you. You are preparing, right? If you are anxious about your future, you are preparing the exams properly, right? You are preparing, or you are studying properly. Why? Because you are anxious about your future. What will happen? So many competitions are there here and there, right? So limited numbers of vacancies, limited numbers of opportunities and huge candidates. That is why you are a bit anxious and you are preparing yourself. But it's good for you, so it just prepares a person to face the challenges of life. Some degree of anxiety is a part of normal life and it is helpful. Just I told you, right? So it is helping the person to prepare for the upcoming danger, है ना. You are just still, I mean, already you are just prepared. If the danger arise, you can escape there, है ना. You can just escape that one. It's good for you. But if the anxiety limit is, anxiety is crossing its limits, all the time you are anxious, now it is not the normal one. You are fearful, it is good. You are worried, it is good. But from morning to evening for the same thing, if you are being worried, now it is a kind of certain pathological conditions. That is why mainly anxiety is of two types. One is a normal and pathological. Normal means normal worried, being worried, and normal fear, है ना. So pathological, which is where the limit is crossed above the normal, right. So in case of this normal anxiety, which is said as a rational, that means what? The anxiety can be provoked by a real or certain reasonable threat, है ना. Anxiety is provoked by certain real or reasonable threat, ठीक है. So the response is always proportional. Whatever you will be doing, it is proportional. That means what? Suppose I think you have seen in that various flats or commercial buildings, there is a provision of that water pipe or that fire safety provisions, है ना. So there is a, the persons are worried about getting affected by the fire. That is why they have prepared all this kind of structure, so that immediately it can be overcome. So according to that, the response is proportional. Okay, you got certain fear. For example, if you are worried about, you are just fearful about your future. That is why you are studying right now, है ना. So whatever you will do, whatever response will be there, so it is always proportional. बहुत ज़्यादा नहीं करोगे, right? Again, another examples I'll be giving you, like this COVID-19 situations, है ना. You are just fearful about this infection. That is why you are maintaining the social distancing out here. It's a proportional, which is required. And in case of this pathological anxiety, right? So it says the irrational, right? It is a kind of exaggerated threat. The exaggerated response of any kind of threat. The response is out of proportion, irrational. Okay? Irrational. The doctors are telling you, like the healthcare professionals, they are telling you, being COVID-19, you should take the social distance, है ना. You should wash your hands properly, right? But if 24/7, you are not coming out of the bed due to the anxiety, you are just over worried about these infections, you are lying on the bed on the time. This is a kind of exaggerated form of the response. Okay? Or we can say it is a kind of non-existent form of anxiety. You are anxious about something which is not exist at all. Getting my points? Okay. So another, we can say this normal anxiety is controllable. Okay? You can control. If you are you are worried about, suppose you are worried about like the dog. Okay? You are worried about the dog. Okay? You're just scared of the dog. Now what you will do? If you see a dog, simply you will take the precautionary measures so that the dog will not be biting you. It is good. It is normal one, right? But if you see the dog and you'll just start shouting like anything, okay, the dog is coming to bite me, the dog is coming to bite me, it is a kind of exaggerated form of the response. Getting my point? Which is not controllable. That is why pathological anxiety is out of control. You cannot control that one, and it is very frequent. It is very frequent. All the time. If you see, every time you see a dog, you will start shouting. ठीक है? The normal anxiety will not make will not hamper your daily work, your daily routine. Normal anxiety, you will keep on doing your daily work, your normal routine, right? You will keep on following that one. Undisruptive, the word is called as the undisruptive. It will not disrupt your normal work. But the pathological anxiety, if it occurs, it will disrupt your normal work. You don't feel like walking. You feel like depressed all the time. Because again and again this anxiety will occur to you. This is a kind of disruptive nature. Getting my points? So mainly it is of two types. Now if we actually see the types of anxiety, these are the types of anxieties. Okay? So first one we can say is a generalized anxiety disorders. You are anxious about everything. You are just anxious about everything. Chronic anxiety disorder, it is said as chronic. ठीक है? कुछ भी हो जाए, you are just getting worried all the time. And it is happening more frequently. It's not like that once it will occur and it will disappear. No, it is a chronic form. बार बार होता रहेगा, है ना? You will be worried about something. You will be worried about anything. It can be anything. This is what we call as generalized. ठीक है? So next one we can say this one is a specific phobia, fear. It is a kind of phobia. You are just panic. You are fearful about a specific situation. You are fearful about specific situation. Some people, after seeing the dog, they start shouting like anything. Some people just after seeing the snake, they start shouting like anything. They got the phobia for any kind of situations. It may be the situation, it can be the person, it can be any animals or any substance, anything. Okay? Some people, if they see the blood also, they start anxiety. They start getting anxiety. Specific situations. Next one is a panic disorder. Panic disorder is a somewhat very exaggerated form of this anxiety. Okay, very exaggerated form of this anxiety, and more frequently it occurs. More frequently, suddenly you are worried about anything. Okay, and it gives the symptoms in terms of that sympathetic and somatic nervous system, which is resemble. That means there is a increase in the sudden heart rate, increase in the palpitations, increase in the breathing, and there may be occurrence of the angina also, chest pain also. The person may die also due to this exaggerated form of anxiety disorder, severe exaggerated form. Okay, it occurs suddenly and it occurs very frequently. Okay, next one, this one is a post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. So post-traumatic stress disorder means if a person came across any kind of accident, any trauma, after its recovery, right? So what can happen? He got the feeling of being again affected by the same situation. है ना? Accident हो गया, recovery हो गया. He got certain, here they are just anxious about the same situation. कहीं फिर से ना हो जाए, कहीं फिर से ना हो जाए, right? This is a kind of anxiety disorders, and we say this one as a post-traumatic. Trauma means accident. Post-traumatic stress disorder. So next one we have this obsessive compulsive disorder, OCD. Obsessive means having a definite belief. Compulsive, doing the same thing again and again. Okay? Doing the same thing again and again. Now the situation is like that. After, by the grace of God, if this COVID situation is over, most probably so many of the people who have this kind of obsessive, maybe compulsive disorders. Why? Because of this, frequent hand washing. Frequent hand washing is a kind of obsessive compulsive disorders. You have wash your hands. After 5 minutes, again there is a feeling of contamination of your hands by the germs. Again you'll go and wash the hands. After 5 minutes, again same feeling will arise. Right? Sometimes what happen, like that rituals. Somebody believes that these rituals need to be performed to overcome any kind of problem. So until and unless that person perform the rituals, okay, then what will happen? He will have the anxiety disorders. Right? He will have the anxiety disorders. For a limit it is good. There has to be ritual for a limit. But the ritual, if you are trying to make it every day, then it is a kind of anxiety disorders. And if you believe if you do not perform this ritual, something bad will happen, this is a kind of anxiety disorders. Okay? In this case, the patients have to do the task, whatever they are thinking of. If they do the task, that means washing the hands, performing the rituals, will decrease their anxiety level. And if it is not done, if it is not performed, it may convert to the panic attack itself. Severe exaggerated form of the anxiety. Getting my points? Okay. Now to the symptoms. The symptoms can be the psychological or sympathetic or somatic. The psychological symptoms, we have this tension all the time, fear, but we should understand that anxiety is more than getting tension and more than getting a fear. Another one is apprehension. Next one is a lack of concentrations. Right? So these are the psychological symptoms. And sympathetic and somatic systems, you know that one, right? If you see tachycardia, increase in the blood pressure, right? Then tremor will be there. Tremor means what? Tremor means sudden voluntary and rhythmic concentration of the muscles. Tremor will be there. Sudden involuntary, sudden involuntary and rhythmic concentration. The shaking of the hands. You can see if a person is over fearful, they will have the shaking of the body. This is what you call as a kind of tremor. Next, sweating can be there. Sweating, adrenergic sweat, we already studied, right? Adrenergic sweating will be there. GIT distress. It is very resemble that many people suffer from hyperacidity, suffer from certain gas problems, suffer from certain intestinal problems, loose motions, constipation due to the anxiety disorders. Right? So these are the symptoms. Again, I'm telling you: tension, fear, apprehension. So apprehension means what? Apprehension means the feeling that something bad or unpleasant will happen to you. It's a kind of feeling, कुछ गलत होने वाला है मेरे साथ. This is what you call as apprehensions. Like concentration, you cannot concentrate on your own work. Tachycardia, tremor, sweating, anxiety, distress, etc. Right? Okay. So alright. So next we have this sedatives and hypnotics. Very important, right? There, as per the definitions, you can see the drugs, that means the sedatives are the drugs that subdues the excitement and calm the subject without inducing sleep, but the drowsiness may be produced. And hypnotics, these are the drugs that will induce the sleep, or it can maintain the sleep also. That means a normal arousal sleep. Okay? That means what? Here you see the pictures, the sedatives. If the person is taking the sedatives, they are not actually sleeping, but they are feel like about to sleep. Okay? You see, the person is totally calm. The excitement has been already reduced. Getting my point? If you ask them also, maybe they are not listening to anything. They will be there in their own world this way. And in case of the hypnosis, once it is injected, the normal arousal sleep will be induced. The person will feel like sleeping there. This hypnotics, that means that can cause the hypnosis. Sedatives, that can cause the sedation. Sedation means the decrease in the alertness and responsiveness to any level of stimuli. See, more often we people are very alert. We people are very alert about these dangers. We people are alert of so many things, right? We people are alert of so many things. And for example, when a teacher will enter to the classes, you'll be alert and you'll just stand up, right? You'll say good morning sir, good morning madam, like Hannah. Then you'll just take out your pen and paper, you'll listen to lectures, right? So if the person is under sedations, maybe he will not be standing up in these conditions. He'll sit. If a teacher says anything, maybe he won't listen, because he cannot put the concentration out there. The alertness and responsiveness, he cannot respond also, right? The responsiveness will always decrease. By means of this, any kind of stimulation. Stimulation means what? It can be anything. It can be like if the teacher asks for anything also, if certain words also, then anything. It can be anything, right? Now, hypnosis, it should not be confused with the word that is specifically for this psychiatry, right? In psychiatry, actually hypnosis means a trance-like state. Not here. I'm not saying about this one. Here, in medical science, hypnosis means the state that is resemble to natural sleep. ठीक है? मतलब सोना जिसको बोलते हैं ना, natural sleep. This is what we call as a hypnosis in medical science. And the person can be aroused by a strong stimuli. एक सोए हुए आदमी को तुम अलार्म क्लॉक लगा दो उसमें, ठीक है, कोई भी साउंड दे दो और you just prick that person, immediately he will be aroused, he will be awake. सोने वाला आदमी हो उठ जाएगा, ठीक है. But we got another term, hypnosis in psychiatry, which means the trance-like state. Trance-like माने trance-like state, TRANCE, trance. That means what? That is a half consciousness, and it is achieved by the professionals by putting the extreme, or can say highest level of concentrations, right? And in this case, that means in case of the psychiatry, the person, those who are hypnotized, we know this word, hypnotized. The person, those who are hypnotized, they are ready to obey the commands, right? Whatever you'll be informing, whatever you'll ask for, maybe they are going to listen everything, right? And they will proceed according to that way. But here in the medical science, hypnosis means this one, hypnosis means a natural sleep, right? Do not get confused. So one is the sedatives, one is the hypnotics. The differences we must understand. One, it will subdue the excitement and calm the subject. Second one, it will maintain the sleep. ठीक है? Next, the sedatives are slow onset. धीरे धीरे काम करता है. Long duration, बहुत देर तक काम करता है. And flatter DRC. I'll tell you what is the flatter DRC. And the hypnotics are quicker onset. Immediately, if you inject a hypnotics, immediately the person will fall asleep. Okay? Shorter durations. Then steep DRC. Maniki, if you just look at this graph here, steep DRC we already studied. DRC means a dose response curve. So A, you can consider this one as a hypnotics. That means you see, if you see the curve, when you increase a small amount of dose, the response is totally increasing, right? Quicker onset. This is what we call as a quicker onset. But in case of B, which is say as a sedatives also, you increase the dose, slowly the response will be increased. That is why it is a slow onset, but it can go for longer durations, whereas the hypnotics will go for the shorter durations. Understood? Right? So the sedatives at the lower dose, it can produce anxiolytic effect. Sedatives are mainly used to reduce the anxiety level in a slow dose, in a very low dose. Okay? And this hypnotics at the higher dose, it can produce general anesthesia. We studied what is the general anesthesia, right? Reversible loss of consciousness. Because why? Because the hypnotics can cause, already it can cause the sleep, already it can induce sleep. Getting my points? Okay? Here are main two words we need to understand. Sedatives basically work in the limbic system. Okay? I told you, na, you should be clearly you should have a clear concept regarding this, last video, neurotransmitter in the CNS. There I told you that limbic system, what is the function of this limbic system, right? It is responsible for the thought and mental function. We have another function, this is one of them, right? So here you can see the limbic system, this one already you have studied there, thought and mental functions. Thought and mental sedatives were, it is decreasing the excitement, right? It is making the person calm. So where it is acting on the thought process as well as the mental functions. So the sedatives mainly work in the limbic system, and the hypnotics can mainly work in the, what is that, reticular activating system. See this same picture I have shown you in my previous video. What it is responsible for? Reticular activating system is responsible for maintaining the wakefulness as well as the sleep. So the hypnotics are directly acting on the system. But here I must tell you one thing, that is the difference between an anxiolytic, sedatives or hypnotics. These are generally quantitative. That means what? A group of drugs, those were sedative itself, in a very low dose, it can give relief from the anxiety. If you increase the dose, it can cause sedations. Okay? Further, it can cause hypnosis. Further, it can cause anesthesia, then coma, then death. This is the CNS activity level, CNS depressing level. Initially in the central nervous system, what will happen? If we apply any hypnotics or sedatives, there is a relief of anxiety initially. Then slowly it will go for the sedations. Then it will go for the hypnosis. Then it will go anesthesia. Finally, if you increase the dose of this hypnosis, it can go for coma. Finally, the death one. Right? But these effects are totally depend on their dose, their route of addition, right? And their physicochemical characteristics. That means all sedatives may not be inducing sleep, or maybe all hypnotics in a low dose cannot cause the sedations, or all hypnotics in a high dose cannot cause this anesthesia. So it is depend on the dose, right? On that particular rules of administration of the drugs, as well as the physicochemical or special properties of this drugs. Getting my point? So this sedatives and hypnotics, like more or less we can say this is a kind of CNS depressants, those who slow down the activity of the brain by acting maybe in a limbic system, maybe in a ascending reticular activating systems, right? So these sedatives, although it is acting in the limbic system, as I told you here, if we increase the dose, okay, this ascending RAS can also be depressed here also. That is why this this relation exists. The sedation can convert to hypnosis, right? Okay. Alright, so coming to the classification of drugs, here you can see I have divided the whole drugs in two parts. One is the anti-anxiety drugs, which is also said as minor tranquilizer, and sedatives and hypnotics, right? So already we have studied, in a lesser dose it can act as anti-anxiety, then consecutively transfer to sedatives and hypnotics, anesthesia this way. Okay, but here just to make you understand only, I have divided here. Okay, so anti-anxiety drugs, we have benzodiazepine class. This is the benzodiazepine. It is said as depending on the chemical structures, right? So benzodiazepines, here you can see diazepam, chlordiazepoxide, oxazepam, lorazepam, alprazolam. So next one we have azapirons, which is also said as atypical anxiolytic drugs or atypical anti-anxiety drugs. Okay, so buspirone, gepirone, aspapirone. Next we have this sedative antihistaminics, hydroxyzine, okay, beta blocker, propranolol. So it's very interesting why this propranolol can be used, right? Okay, I'll let you know later on while we'll be studying this mechanism of actions. So next come to this sedatives and hypnotics. Again, first classification is the benzodiazepines. Here I have divided in short acting, intermediate acting, as well as long acting in terms of all the drugs. Okay, so short acting, here you can see triazolam, oxazepam, midazolam. Intermediate acting, alprazolam, astazolam, temazepam, lorazepam, then nitrazepam. Okay, then long acting we have diazepam, florazepam, clonazepam, chlordiazepoxide. This is a non-benzodiazepine hypnotics. The structure is not the structure is not similar to benzodiazepines. Okay, so zolpidem, geleplon, zopiclone, esgopiclone. Now come to this barbiturates. Of course, why it is said? Because of the chemical structure: long acting, short acting, and ultra short acting. Here you can see long acting we have this phenobarbital, methylbarbital. Short acting pentobarbital, amobarbital. Ultra short acting we have thiopental as well as methotrexate. But as a anxiolytic or sedatives, the barbiturates are not used in recent scenario. Currently these barbiturate uses are confined to the anesthetics as a inducing agents. Okay, here we can see the long acting barbiturates. These long acting barbiturates are mainly used as a anticonvulsants. What is anticonvulsants or convulsion, seizure, epilepsy study later on? We got a topic for that one. Next, this short acting barbiturates. Okay, the short acting barbiturates, earlier it was used as a hypnotics earlier, but nowadays these are not used. The ultra short acting, these are used as a inducing agent for general anesthesia. Inducing agent to induce the sleep, because these are the mainly as a hypnotics. Okay, so benzodiazepine is having some advantages over barbiturates. That is why this benzodiazepine is preferred more. Okay, it is preferred more than that of this barbiturates. We'll study this kind of advantages in the next coming slides. Okay, Okay, so next is certain miscellaneous drugs, melatonin, ramelteon, triclofos, as well as promethazine. All right. So this is I have written. I am putting this kind of classifications. So in different books, you'll find the classification in a different way. Per your choice, you can note it down. All right. First, we'll study about this mechanism of action of benzodiazepine as well as barbiturates. Why I am writing both the mechanism altogether, because benzodiazepines and barbiturates will work by means of the same mechanism. That means the GABA A receptor via GABA A receptor. What is GABA A receptor? What is glutamate receptors? This thing we have already discussed in the previous video. That means neurotransmitter of central nervous system. If you are not aware of this one, please go through this video, then we'll come to know. Right. Okay, so already we have know there is a balance in between the excitatory inputs as well as the inhibitory inputs. There are two inputs of our brain. That means I'm speaking about this limbic system as well as reticular activating system. Right. So in both the limbic system and reticular activating system, there are two kinds of nerves. One is the excitatory nerves, second one is the inhibitory nerves. So excitatory nerves, we are saying this one is a glutaminergic. Already these things we have studied, right? So inhibitory nerves, we are saying this one is a GABAergic. That means the main neurotransmitter is the GABA, and working by means of this GABA receptors and excitatory inputs, main neurotransmitter is the glutamate, right? And it is working by means of this glutamate receptors. So we can say NMDA receptors and all we studied already, right? Now the point is there is a balance in between this glutaminergic as well as GABAergic, okay, where in the limbic system as well as reticular activating systems. So limbic system is responsible for this, that anxiety, some certain mental conditions and etc. we studied, and reticular activating system is responsible for what? Arousal, wakefulness, we can say sleep. Okay. So always there is a balance. That is why it determines the prevailing level of the neuronal activity. That means the balanced neuronal activity. Getting my point? If by any means, if the glutaminergic activity is increased in both limbic or RAS, glutaminergic activity is increased, that means there is a condition of this arousal, anxiety, insomnia, then restlessness. These things will be there. Now if this glutaminergic activity is decreasing and GABAergic activity is increasing, that means more GABA facilitatory actions or more GABA mediated actions, then what can happen? GABA can depress, it is an inhibitory, right? So there is a sedation, we can say decrease in the anxiety also. Getting my points? And let me tell you one thing, these benzodiazepines and barbiturates not only work in the limbic and RAS. These benzodiazepines mainly work in the limbic system. That is why it is helpful for just we have discussed, as a sedatives as well as a anxiolytics. And these barbiturates mainly work in the RAS. That is why it is good for hypnotics. Okay, but increase doses of benzodiazepines, the effect may transfer from limbic to RAS also. That is why increased doses of benzodiazepines can be used as a hypnotics. Just we have studied. Now both the benzodiazepine and barbiturates not only work in the limbic and RAS, it can work in the medulla also, medulla oblongata, right? There it can produce the muscle relaxations, right? We just came across the word centrally acting muscle relaxants, right? So it can produce the muscle relaxations. So as well as if it acts on the cerebellum, it can produce the ataxia. Ataxia means what? Uncoordinated movements of the body, right? It can hamper the gait. Gait, G-I-T, gait mane that problem in walking, right? So there is no coordination in between. I mean, for example, we can say if there is no coordination in between that your left feet to the right feet as well as your left hand to the right hand, that time it is problematic. You cannot walk properly, right? Alright, so now coming to this is the basic of this one. Now coming to the mechanism of action. Both benzodiazepines and barbiturates can act by means of this GABA A receptor. We studied already, we had two kinds of receptor, GABA A and GABA B. So GABA A is mainly the ionotropic receptor. That means one chloride ion channel is acted or it is attached with this one. It is mainly the pentameric. You see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 membrane protein will be there, right? Next, GABA B receptor here, although there is no importance to discuss, there is no need of discussing GABA B receptor out here, but just I am reminding you, GABA B receptor is a kind of G protein couple receptor, which is acting by means of like inhibiting calcium or increase in the efflux of potassium. Okay, so but here the benzodiazepines and barbiturates will act by means of this GABA A receptor. So here you see specific benzodiazepine receptor would be there in case of this GABA A receptor. It is specific. Here only benzodiazepine can bind. That is why this GABA A receptor sometimes said as benzodiazepine receptor also. Benzodiazepine receptor also. But in case of the barbiturates, although we have a different sites for barbiturate binding, the other things can also bind here. Okay. Now what this benzodiazepine will do, it will bind with very high affinity to the GABA A receptor and facilitate the binding of GABA to the receptor. This benzodiazepine will bind at this site, okay, and it will facilitate the binding of the GABA. GABA is a neurotransmitter. GABA gamma amino butyric acid, right? So it will facilitate the binding of this one to the particular GABA binding site, right? Facilitating the binding will be facilitated. Getting my point? That means the benzodiazepine is having a very high affinity, but it is, we can say, less intrinsic activity. Less intrinsic activity. Small intrinsic activity, a little bit intrinsic activity can be there, but in comparison to the GABA, this neurotransmitter is very, very less. Right? I think you can recall what is affinity or intrinsic activity. Now after binding this one, whenever the benzo will bind here, it will facilitate more and more GABA to bind here. Finally what will happen? This channel will open. There is a influx of chloride from outside to inside, and hyperpolarization will be there, and finally what will happen? Sedation will be there, and then the anxiety will be reduced, right? Can also go for muscle relaxations, ataxia and everything. So here one point we must remember, it will increase the frequency of binding rather durations. See, all the drugs, all the agonists has to bind with the receptor and it has to come out and degrade. Bind with the receptor, it has to come out and degrade. Bind with the receptor, it has to come out and degrade. That is the phenomena by which a drug will act. I told you this one before also. A drug cannot keep on binding with the receptor for a longer period of time. Right? So this benzodiazepine, what it will do? It will increase the frequency of binding. Very benzodiazepine will bind. Finally, what will happen? The GABA binding will be facilitated and opening of the chloride channel, influx of chloride, right? Then hyperpolarizations. If you are writing in the examination, you don't that much of thing. This is for your understanding only. Okay, remember, for each and every video I have elaborated the things, but it doesn't mean that all the things you have to write in the examination. Okay. Again, the barbiturates. Same way, the barbiturate can also bind with the GABA receptor. Okay. It is having a very good affinity. So after binding of the barbiturate to the particular site of the GABA receptor, two things can happen. First thing, it will facilitate the binding of GABA, opening of the chloride channel, same as that of benzodiazepine. Okay? But if the concentration of barbiturate is increased, okay, if the concentration of barbiturate is increased, then it can show the GABA mimetic action. It can show the GABA mimetic action. That means if the concentration of barbiturate is increasing, and whenever it will bind with the barbiturate binding site, the barbiturate itself can open the chloride channel. In case of the benzodiazepine, the benzodiazepine will bind and the GABA will bind, then there is a opening of the chloride channel. Are you getting the difference? At higher concentration, barbiturates can show the GABA mimetic actions, the same action as that of GABA. Okay, this is the difference of this benzodiazepine and barbiturate. GPAT question. Okay, as well as the the barbiturates can increase the duration of chloride ion channel opening, not the frequency. Why? Because at higher concentration, barbiturate, it's the very good intrinsic activity. Getting my point? At higher concentrations, barbiturate itself open the chloride ion channel and there is a hyperpolarizations. So this is the difference you should remember. Benzodiazepine is the frequency and barbiturates will increase the duration of chloride ion channel opening. Alright. Alright, so here are some differences, or we can say is a kind of comparison in between the benzodiazepines as well as barbiturates with respect to the pharmacological actions and certain pharmacokinetic profiles also. Right? So first thing here we can see the benzodiazepines, even at higher dose, it do not induce anesthesia. That means it's having a very high margin of safety, right? Therapeutic index, I think you can remember. So that means, like the previously what I told you, right? All are kind of CNS depressants, and everybody can perform like anti-anxiety to that one sedatives. Then finally it can convert to hypnotics, anesthesia, coma, then death. These are more precisely applicable in case of this barbiturates, right? So barbiturates can follow this kind of steps. Mainly certain benzodiazepines can also do, but here as overall, if we say the benzodiazepines in a higher dose do not even at higher dose do not induce anesthesia, right? So barbiturates can induce the anesthesia. That is why here you can see loss of consciousness and low therapeutic index. That means low margin of safety. ठीक है. Benzodiazepine is safer than that of this barbiturates. Here benzodiazepines are not enzyme inducers. The benzodiazepine can be metabolized by both phase 1 and phase 2 reactions. Remember this one. Okay? But after phase 1 reaction also, in general, what is happening? After metabolism, the active drug is getting inactivated. But here, certain benzodiazepines, right, after getting metabolized by means of this, what is say, as phase 1 reactions also, after crossing phase 1 reactions also, it is getting activated. I mean to say, it is already activated, right? For example, we have diazepam. Diazepam is a active drug, है ना? So this diazepam, after crossing the phase 1 reactions, metabolism reactions, it is converted to oxazepam, which is also an activate drug. Okay? Okay. So here just I told you, benzodiazepines do not induce any kind of enzymes, microsomal enzymes. That is why there is no metabolic tolerance. Okay? Tolerance means when the dose of the drug needs to be increased to get the desired effect. Okay? So whatever the benzodiazepines will be taken by the patient, it is not degraded. That is why same dose will be sufficient to give the therapeutic effect. That is why less drug interactions. But the barbiturates are very potent enzyme inducers. It can induce the microsomal enzymes like anything. That is why whatever drugs you will be taking, immediately it will be degraded. That is why the dose have to be increased. That is why we are saying this one as it can cause the metabolic tolerance. So it can give rise to the high drug interactions, drug interactions. Benzodiazepines, as we say, do not have any tolerance, so the drug abuse is very low, very low drug abuse. But in contrast to that, barbiturates can perform, it can show off psychic as well as physical drug dependence. Okay? In case of the benzodiazepines, REM sleep is not affected. REM sleep is a kind of stage of sleeping. We got various stages of sleeping, right? REM sleep means what is a rapid eye movement. I'm not going in details. If you want to know further about this one, please you search in the internet or Google. You'll find what is REM sleep or what are the types of sleeps, right? So here REM sleep is not affected. REM sleep, we can say, is a very deep sleep, right? So the barbiturates can cause suppression of the REM sleep. Certain alterations or certain modulations it can cause in case of this REM sleep, right? And it can induce the, you can say, hypnosis. While inducing that one, it can cause certain modulation of this REM sleep. That is why after the drug withdrawal, once the drug therapy will be finished, it can show up certain withdrawal nightmares, hangover, etc. Okay? Next, benzodiazepines do not show any kind of hyperalgia. Hyperalgesia means oversensitivity to the pain. But the barbiturates can show hyperalgesia, oversensitivity to the pain itself. Whenever you will be taking the barbiturates, it's okay, you won't feel any kind of pain. But once it is stopped, okay, once the dosage regimen treatment will be over, after that, in case of a small stimulus, in case of a very small pain in stimulus, the person will feel tremendous pain. But the pain stimulus is very small. Okay? This is what we call as hyperalgesia. Benzodiazepines, it can show amnesia, that means the loss of memory, but with no automatism. That means an automatism means what? An action performed unconsciously, involuntarily. As it can show amnesia. You forgot something, but you are forgetting something doesn't mean you are unconsciously going to do any other things, right? But here, barbiturates, of course, it can show the amnesia, loss of memory, but with automatism. That means you have forgotten something. That is why you are going to do something worst. For example, if you take to forget the barbiturates, while in case of this therapy regimen, you are taking the therapy, or the patient is taking the therapy, so of course you will have that amnesia, loss of memory. So during this course, if he or she forgets to take the barbiturates, he will feel like taking the barbiturates again and again, unconsciously, in a involuntary manner. Okay? So then what will happen? Poisoning can be there, right? Poisoning can be there. So if there is a benzodiazepine poisoning by any means, there is a specific antagonist, flumazenil. Okay, this flumazenil will bind, it will block the benzodiazepine binding site. So the poisoning can be reversed, but in case of barbiturates, we do not have any kind of options, you see. Right? Another thing, the benzodiazepines doses is acceptable in the daytime. Okay? But not in a huge dose. The sub-hypnotic dose, that means less dose, those who cannot produce the hypnosis. It is accepted in the daytime. It can be taken, right? But the barbiturates cannot be taken in the daytime. Why? Because it can cause the drowsiness, severe drowsiness. Of course it will cause that, because barbiturate is mainly for inducing the sleep. Okay? Now benzodiazepine can cause respiration. It do not have any effect on respiration as well as cardiovascular functions. It do not have any effect. Even at the hypnotic dose also, even in case of this, higher doses also. But the barbiturates in higher doses, it can cause respiratory depression, hypotensions. It can cause myocardial depressions. Apart from this, it can cause certain, we can say GIT relaxations also, gastrointestinal tract relaxation also. I'm not including these things here. I'm just verbally telling you, right? It can relax the bladder as well as uterus, urinary bladder. And again, it can cause decrease in the urine outflow from kidneys. Right? So that specific antagonist already I told you. So this is a bit of comparisons in between benzodiazepines and barbiturates. So via this chart, we have come to know that benzodiazepines are much more safer than these barbiturates. That is why already I told you barbiturates are declined as hypnotics nowadays. Right? The uses are confined to induction of the anesthesia as an inducing agent, and certain barbiturates can be used in case of this, convulsions as an anticonvulsant. Okay? So we are here in the therapeutic use as well as the side effects of these benzodiazepines, right? So it is used in case of this anxiety. In the previous slides already I have classified the anti-anxiety drugs, so you can see there what are the drugs mainly used in case of this anxiety as anxiolytics. So it can be used to treat insomnia also, right? So insomnia means we can say this one, the loss of sleep, decrease in the sleep, right, or problem in sleeping, we can say. It can also be used as a pre-anesthetic medications and induction of anesthesia. As I told you, benzodiazepines are having certain advantages over this barbiturates. That is why the surgeons, they are preferring this benzodiazepines more. Okay. It can also be used as a skeletal muscle relaxant for this muscle spasticity, right? We studied already muscle spasticity. Then it is also used as anticonvulsants. We have a detailed chapter on that one, I'll discuss there. And it is very good for the alcohol withdrawal symptoms. The person, those who are alcoholic, chronic alcoholic, right? So suddenly if their alcohols needs to be stopped for different, liver diseases or any kind of diseases, so they got certain withdrawal symptoms. Okay, certain other diseases they continue. So to inhibit this kind of withdrawal symptoms, this diazepam, oxazepam, chlordiazepoxide can be used. So side effects are very minimal. Actually, benzodiazepines are the safest drug of this kind of CNS depressants category, right? But it can show certain dose dependent drowsiness, as well as it can show fatigue, it can show disorientations, it can show lethargy. Okay, so it can also produce some kind of withdrawal symptoms like anxiety, insomnia. Although it is used in case of insomnia, but it can show insomnia also after withdrawal. So impaired concentrations, headache, irritability, tremors, these things can be there. Here one very special point I would like to mention, this flunitrazepam, it is a testless benzodiazepine. Okay, it is used, not used, it is misused, okay, for various by the various, you can say, criminals, I should say, right? So as this one is a testless, if it is mixed with anything, to like the person could not feel the taste. Okay, and it is used in case of this, that sexual assault as well as rape attempts. Okay, benzodiazepines, it can cause amnesia, that means loss of memory. The victim even could not remember what happened. Okay, so it is done to escape that, that we can say the judicial punishment and anything. So the people should be very much careful about this one, right? Okay, you have this barbiturates. Therapeutic use, although it is written as a sedative hypnotics, but seldom used. We can say not used at all nowadays. The main use in case of the anesthesia as an intravenous route for the first inducing agent, as a first inducing agents. Okay, also it can be used in case of the convulsions, right? So it's having a use which is not directly linked with the mechanism of this one, right? So as we know, barbiturates can induce the enzyme. It is a potent enzyme inducers. So it can induce the glucuronosyl transferase enzyme. It can induce the glucuronosyl transferase enzyme. It is an enzyme which is responsible for converting the bilirubin to the bilirubin diglucuronide. This bilirubin diglucuronide is dissolved in urine and it is excreted in the urine. Okay, so it is used in case of this hyperbilirubinemia of neonates. We know the neonates or the newborn babies are there, most of the times they suffer from this hyperbilirubinemia. You have heard the term, that neonatal jaundice, right? So it is nothing but this hyperbilirubinemia. So it can be used to increase the activity of this glucuronosyl transferase. So finally what will happen? Conversion of bilirubin, faster conversion of bilirubin to bilirubin diglucuronide. Ultimately it will be excreted, right? So side effects are like tolerance and drug interactions. Why tolerance? We studied already, right? So it is more likely to cause a drug abuse, right? So withdrawal symptoms, like it can cause insomnia, impaired concentrations, headache, tremors, and the worst part is it can cause this delirium also. it is a kind of psychological disorders, right, which is characterized by which is characterized by confused thinking and a reduced awareness of surrounding. The person do not know what is going on around him or her. ठीक है, कुछ भी मालूम नहीं होता उसको आजू बाजू में क्या हो रहा है. ठीक है, and he is often confused. This is what we say as a delirium. This delirium we'll study in case of this, antipsychotic drugs. We'll study later. ठीक है, so it can cause hangover, it can cause drug automatism. ठीक है, so finally it can cause respiratory depressions also. We studied already, right? Edema, hypersensitivity reactions, cardiovascular depressions, and urinary retentions, these things. So coming to the other group of drugs, so we have this atypical anxiolytic, which is also said as azapirons by the chemical names, right? So to know this mechanism of this atypical anxiolytic, definitely we must know about this serotonergic pathway, because this kind of drugs will act by means of this serotonergic pathway. So already we came across this topic, right? That is why I just told you to be clear about that particular topics. So here you see that dopamine activation, dopaminergic nerve originations, raphe nuclei, right here, and it can migrate up to this kind of areas, right? So already these things already we just covered, है. So I would like to just remind you that it is responsible for this mood, memory processing, sleep, cognition, social behavior, appetite, sexual desire, etc. This kind of serotonergic pathway. Okay? And there are so many serotonin receptors also. Okay? Receptor and as well as receptor subtypes. So we'll come to know this one when we'll be studying individually about this serotonin. Okay? So it may be 5-HT1 receptor, HT2, HT3, HT4 this way, right? So here this atypical anxiolytic, how it will act? It will act as a partial agonist to the brain presynaptic 5-HT1 A subtype receptors. Again I am telling you, partial agonist to presynaptic. You can remember, I think, presynaptic, right? Presynaptic 5-HT1 A subtype receptors. So any activation of the presynaptic receptor will lead to decrease in the synthesis and secretion of that particular neurotransmitter. That means it will suppress the serotonin neurotransmissions. Okay? So what can happen? Then the anxiety can be overcome, the anxiety can be suppressed. Okay? But here these drugs are having certain delayed action. That means it takes around 2 to 3 weeks for the therapeutic effect. That is why it's not suitable for the acute anxiety. It is neither muscle relaxant nor hypnotic or any convulsant. Certain good qualities are also there. That means it has very minimal abuse. It doesn't have any kind of withdrawal symptom. Okay? But it can cause tachycardia, nervousness, GIT distress, paresthesia, etc. So paresthesia means a kind of pricking sensation. But usually do not accompany any kind of pain. There is no pain. Okay? So mainly it occurs on the hands, but it can occur in other parts of body also. I am telling about paresthesia. That is why it is manifested as certain tingling sensation, numbness, skin crawling sensation, or you can say this one as itching also. Okay? Now this kind of atypical anxiolytic can cause this pupillary constriction, miosis, which is dose dependent, and it is carried out by means of certain unknown mechanisms. It is all about this atypical anxiolytics. Here I just want to point out this propranolol, because in the classification we have written this drug also propranolol. Okay, this propranolol directly do not have any kind of anxiolytic effect, but due to anxiety or any kind of worrying situations, apprehensions, okay, or if you are about to face the interview, job interview, or any kind of public gathering, public addresses, okay, due to these anxiety conditions, the person may have certain kind of nervousness, palpitations, tremors, GIT upset, okay, even they may have hypertension also. So to reduce this kind of symptoms, this propranolol can be used. We know it is a beta blocker, right? So it is the, we can say, blocker of the sympathetic system, and the sympathetic system will give rise to all this kind of a sympathetic effect. That means increase in the heart rate, increase in the blood pressure, these things, right? So this is the main use of propranolol in case of this anxiety. Directly it cannot suppress the anxiety, okay? And we can say ultimately anxiety is what, if this kind of symptoms are getting suppressed, then only we can say there is a relief from the anxiety. So it is a indirect contribution. The propranolol is contributed to anxiety indirectly, okay? But as this one has certain cardiovascular system effects, as this one is a beta blocker, so very rarely it is used as a potential anxiolytic agents, okay? So coming to non-benzodiazepine hypnotics, right? So as the name suggests, non-benzodiazepine, that means the structure is not resemble to benzodiazepine, and which is used as a hypnotics, okay? These drugs are used as a hypnotics. But here we need to understand the concept of benzodiazepine receptor, right? Just 2 or 3 slides before, I think I just inform you what is that benzodiazepine receptor. It is nothing but the GABA A receptor, okay? Benzodiazepine receptor is nothing but the GABA A receptor, but here especially the GABA binding here especially the benzodiazepine binding sites are denoted. That means if I say benzodiazepine receptor, specifically this benzodiazepine binding site, which is also known as the modulatory benzodiazepine binding site, because it can cause certain modulation of this receptor, right? So here, just to understand, try to understand, benzodiazepine receptor is nothing but the GABA A receptor, which is specifically for the benzodiazepine, okay? Which is specifically for the benzodiazepine, okay? Now this kind of receptor may be of 2 types, okay? Benzodiazepine 1 receptor, benzodiazepine 2 receptors. So benzodiazepine 1 receptor is found throughout the brain in large concentration as well as in cerebellum, okay? And benzodiazepine 2 receptor, or we can say benzodiazepine 2 subunits, it is mainly available in cerebral cortex, hippocampus, spinal cord, etc. Okay? That means throughout the brain or in cerebellum, whatever the GABA A receptor will be there, okay? In that GABA A receptor, the specific benzodiazepine 1 modulatory sites will be there, and whatever the GABA A receptor will be available in cerebral cortex, hippocampus, spinal cord, etc., there specifically benzodiazepine 2 modulatory binding sites will be available, okay? Now This kind of modulatory binding sites, which is available in large quantity in brain or cerebellum, is responsible for this anti-anxiety, sedative or hypnotic actions. Right. So this benzodiazepine 2 modulatory binding sites, it is responsible for muscle relaxation, anti-convulsion as well as amnesia. Getting my point? So these are the drugs: zolpidem, geliplon, zopiclone, esgopiclone. These are the drugs which will bind with BZ1 modulatory subunits, or which is also known as the BZ1 receptors. So what will happen if it binds? Opening of the receptor, that means opening of the GABA A receptor, influx of chloride ion and hyperpolarization. Then what can happen? Sedative can be there, hypnosis can be there, or the anxiety can be decreased. This is the action only. These are the drugs. This is the mechanism, right? Okay. So this kind of drugs are mainly used for the hypnotic actions. Okay. It is used for insomnia. Okay. As one thing here, I would like to clear: this benzodiazepine can bind with both BZ1 and BZ2 subunits. Those things should be clear. Okay. Benzodiazepine can bind with both BZ1, BZ subunits, or BZ1, BZ2 receptors, but these drugs can only bind with BZ1 subunits or receptor, and this clobazam, which is not included in the classification because not required. So this clobazam is specifically bind in that BZ receptors. Okay. And we have studied about this flumazenil. It is an antagonist. Okay. So this antagonist is for both BZ1 as well as BZ2. Okay. So the side effects: it can cause headache, daytime drowsiness, nightmares at high doses. Okay. So clobazam we'll study later when we'll be studying the anticonvulsants, etc. Understood? Okay. Alright, so we are approaching the last slide of this lecture, that is the miscellaneous group of compounds. Right. So here the first is the melatonin. So melatonin is a kind of hormone. We know this one, right? So this hormone is secreted from the pineal gland, and it is responsible for we can say this maintaining of the sleep pattern. Okay. So this melatonin is secreted mainly at darkness, mainly at night. Okay. So this melatonin secretion is inhibited in the daytime under the sunlight. If there is a sunlight, there is no secretion of melatonin. This melatonin is also responsible for the skin color. We know this one, we studied. So actually what this melatonin does, this melatonin will specifically bind with the MT1 and MT2 receptor, okay, which we can say as a melatonin receptor also, which is present in the suprachiasmatic nucleus, okay, which is present in the suprachiasmatic nucleus. Now you can ask, what is suprachiasmatic nucleus? It is a small region in the brain, especially in the hypothalamus, okay, which is responsible for controlling the circadian rhythm. You know about this normal circadian rhythm, right? Okay. So after binding of melatonin with MT1 and MT2 receptor, it will induce and promote sleep. First thing, it will maintain the circadian rhythm of normal sleep as well as the awake cycle. Understood? This melatonin is mainly responsible, not responsible actually, it is mainly, prescribed for the jet lag symptoms. This jet lag symptoms is a group of symptoms which is occurred due to the, we can say, problem in sleeping. Okay, or we can say which results due to the delay in the sleep also. It is also said as desynchronosis. Mainly this kind of jet lag symptoms occur in case of the persons those who frequently travel in different time zones. Okay, in that world, okay, the time zones are different. We know this one, right? In India, if it is daytime, in other countries it may be the night time. So the time zones are not similar. So the person, those who frequently travel from one time zone to another, okay, so for that kind of people, this jet lag symptoms arises. It is nothing but a kind of insomnia, okay, disturbed sleep, or sometimes the early waking also happen. The person could not sleep properly, wake up early. Or sometimes it is also possible the person is sleeping, like extensively, excessive sleepings, what we say as. Okay, then it can lead to certain digestive problems. For example, constipation may also be there, and diarrhea may also be there. Okay, then concentration problem would be there. Okay, then daytime fatigue. If the person could not sleep properly means what? Daytime he will be like, overtired. Daytime fatigue, which is known as. Now, due to all these conditions, there may be a certain mood changes. So these are the symptoms coming under the jet lag symptoms. Okay, so melatonin is prescribed. So next one is a Ramelteon. Ramelteon mechanism of action is similar to that of melatonin. It is an agonist of MT1 and MT2 receptor. Recently, it is approved for the treatment of insomnia. Okay. Okay. So next, miscellaneous drugs, hydroxyzine, which is the antihistaminic, promethazine, which is also the antihistaminic. Already we have seen the histamine part here, right? The histamine or histaminergic nerves are originated from the hypothalamus, especially from which part? Tuberomammillary nucleus. Okay, if you are confusing, then again you see the previous video, right? Neurotransmitter in CNS. You'll come to know. So this histamine or pathway or this histaminergic nerves is responsible for this arousal. So what we are doing here, we are blocking the histamine by providing the antihistaminic drugs, right? So definitely there is an induction of the sleep. Getting my point? So some kind of drowsiness will be there. So all we'll study specifically whenever we'll be studying the antihistaminic drugs, but maximum of the antihistaminic drugs are having this kind of certain CNS depressant effects. Okay, so that's all for today, and hope you have understood this one properly. See, here I am telling you the detailed informations. I'm providing you the detailed informations. This is for your learning. For the examination purpose, you just make a short note, right? Okay, thank you.